Welcome to Pixel Composer 1.18.7, and let's see what we have in this version. Look at the release note, you're gonna see that there are a lot of nodes being introduced, though a bunch of them are just like utility and mathematic nodes, so I'm not gonna go too deep in the detail here. But we do have some new actual effect node. So first, it has separate colors, and this node, as the name suggests, it will separate each color into its own surface. So you're gonna create an array of surface. Each of them will only have one colors. Then we have the surface data node. It's very simple. It just get a surface and it's output this information about that surface, right? It's output the dimension, the width, the height, the format as a string, the format as a number, the bit depth, the channel. And then we have node related to array operation. We have the array unique. So this one will take in an array and will remove all the duplicated member in an array and then output the array, a new array only containing unique member. And we have the array boolean operation. This node will take two array and will apply a boolean operation on it. So it's either a union, so you combine both array together without duplicating member. Then we have a subtract. So you subtract member in the first array by the second array, or you can intersect. So only select the member that share between both arrays, and XOR, which is the opposite of the intersect. You just select a member that are unique in the array 1 and the array 2. And then we have the cache value array, which is similar to the cache array, but instead of taking in a surface, it will take in any value. So a floating point, a structure, an array, for example. So what it does is that it's gonna transform an animation into a single array, which each member corresponding to an animation in that frame. So for example, I can connect like an animating node, like a wiggler node, right? We have an output of a single value that changes over time, and then I connect it to the cache value array, and then I play the entire animation first, and you're gonna see that the output will now be the value of the wiggler in each frame. And next will be the setup node that used for converting or extracting color value in different color space. So we have three nodes. We have the color RGB, color HSV, and color to KLCH. As the name suggests, this node takes in a color input and then output a floating values for each channel: the RGB channel, the HSV hue saturation value channel, and the LCH, the lightness or like luminance, and then chroma, and then hue. Then we have the vector normalized node, which is very simple. It just input in a vector of any dimension and it will output a new vector with the magnitude or the length of 1. And we have setup nodes for dealing with matrix data. So now we have node for creating matrix that you can define a size in both dimensions, so you can create a non-square matrix. You have a bunch of nodes for matrix manipulation. You can set the value, you can do mathematical operation on matrix data, and you can have multiply vector. You can find determinant, you can find invert, transpose, or you can convert it to a one-dimensional array. And there are currently two nodes that take in metric values. The first one is convolution. So this one is already existed node that will apply convolution, and you can use metric as a kernel. And there's this new node, matrix color apply, that allow you to mix the RGB channel using 3x3 matrix as a coefficient matrix. Like for example, you give it identity matrix like 111 on the main diagonal, just gonna output the original image, but you can adjust other value as well. As you can see, when you change other values, it also control the RGB value in each channel. So in red channel, green channel, blue channel. And next we have differential node, and this node will calculate how the number change over time or change per frame. Like in this example, I have object move using a path, and now I'm gonna send the path to the differential node, and then I do some multiplication and then add it with the original position to draw our velocity vector of an object. We also have two new nodes for dealing with polar coordinate. So there's a node that convert from Cartesian coordinate to polar coordinate and vice versa. And next will be about the path. So we have a general improvement on the path editor, mainly the anchor editor or the control point editor. Now by default, it will not break the symmetry between each side of the control point. Instead, it will just adjust the length of one side. Right? As you can see here, when I rotate one, it also rotate the other. You can just adjust the length individually now. But then if you want to break the symmetry between them, you can hold shift and you will see that the icon on the cursor change. It shows that you're gonna break the connection this way. Then you can just break the symmetry and adjust each of the control point individually. We also have the new the variable weight system for the path editor. So if you click on this, you can click on the path and drag to adjust the weight of the path at that point. This weight will be used in other nodes, like the draw line node, for example. You can connect the path to the draw line and then add it some more segment. By default, the weight of that path will be used to adjust the thickness of the line. You can also disable this behavior in this apply weight option. If you disable it, then the weight will be ignored basically. There is also a setting for you to apply color by weight. So here I'm going to give it some gradient. Now the color doesn't change that much because the range here is very low. So let's say we increase the range to 0 to 10, for example. Now you're gonna see that the weight now have a direct impact to the color of the line. Another note that have the weight system is the plot part. We now have new property or new equation that you can use to control the weight. I use that in the example of the spring or the spiral to create this spiral shape part with different weight, right? And I can use that weight to compose the object in the middle. Yeah, you can see the equation for the weight is very simple. It's just basic trigonometry, right? We also have new node for the part called part to SDF, which will generate an SDF surface or the sign distance field surface from a given part. So we can draw a simple part here. It's similar to draw line, right? But instead of drawing as an actual line, it's drawing on the surface as an SDF. Well, more specifically, just a DF because it doesn't have a negative distance inside of the line. We can also adjust the distance, maximum distance, and you can invert it. Then we have the improvement on the already existed node. Like the tile editor also got a bunch of improvement. There's more work on the undo system, so it should work now. There's now a dedicated button and hotkey for rotating the current tile. The default keys are for rotate and T for flipping. There's now also an option to flip tile inside the tile set selector, and there's some work on the palette as well. The palette system now support right click to delete, and you can now right click on the eraser tool to clear the entire palette. There's also an improvement on a larger brush. When you're drawing like a line using the shift key, if you now draw a line spaced out properly instead of just overlap each shapes. And it also works with the rectangle tool and the fill tool as well. The threshold node now got a new algorithm. Instead of just having like one uniform number to determine whether a pixel is black or white, it will now use local region or the pixel around it to determine whether the current pixel is brighter or darker. So you can adjust the adaptive radius here, which control the radius of the mean calculation. But as you can see here, the result is that it will extract more detail from the original image. Next, we have an EXR file support for the export node. So now you can export your 16-bit or 32-bit image. The Atlas data also got a complete rework. When you use some node like separate shapes, you may notice that it have this surface output, but it also have Atlas output. This is a special type of surface that have extra information, like a position, rotation, scale. And then you can use node like Atlas Draw or Draw Atlas to render this Atlas into one image. And now I have reworked the set Atlas node or the Atlas set node to give you a lot more control, and it's more user friendly. So like for example, if you want to set only the position, you can now just toggle the position and they set to absolute mode. So it's just gonna move all Atlas to 0, 0. Now, but this image have some problem because I think, yep, because in this one you can see that the image they connect to each other. So the separate shape treated as one shapes. But just for example, like you can give it rotation and you can rotate each image individually. Again, just ignore this one. Right, the same thing with scale. So this one is now a little bit easier to use. And the separate shape node also have an option to disable the cropping as well. So the output here, instead of cropping each image individually, it will now leave the image dimension as the same. The sprite file in also have a new output for all layers and all tag as a string array. So you can use it in automation. The random node now have new option to shuffle. So it will regenerate new random value every frame. The math node now have new mapping operation, allowing you to map values from one range to another range. And they also have improvement on the user interface. In some tooltip here that have this cursor-like things, you can now hold shift key and then use scroll wheel to scroll through each option. The preference section also got an improvement as well. The section header here is now collapsible. You can click to collapse or double click to collapse all. Make it easier for you to search or to see the part that you want. The theme section also got some rework, making it easier for you to see which value is being derived by which parameters. There's an option to see all the sprite in the theme and all the font in the theme. The hotkey section also got some improvement. The key here are now easier to select. You don't have to like hover directly on the text anymore because it makes it really difficult, especially when there's no text. And the button here also show the modifier key that are assigned to it as well. And there's also a new section in the node that allow you to change the default surface depth, default interpolation, and the oversampling for the node that support them. And as usual, there's a little bug fix in this version that I will show on the screen. And there's also another update on the internal node system. It doesn't change anything in terms of like the user side, but I have now shifted a lot of node information to the external file instead of baking it into the software itself, which make it easier to support like a custom node that use its own shader and stuff like that. For Patreon supporter, I'm also collecting more projects for the next random project pack number 2. So normally once in a while I have like a bunch of these projects that I make, right? And I collect it and I make it a little bit better, and then I pack it up as a zip file and then give it to Patreon supporter to use as an inspiration or to help them with different notes. And I'm in the process of collecting for the second pack. It should be coming out soon, I think in this month. So please look forward to that. And as usual, special thanks for every Patreon supporter here. Their support really helped me with the software development, and of course, also thank you for everyone who buys the software in general too. And for now, thank you for watching and see you in the next one.